All right, hello again. I'd like to thank everybody for taking time to join us on today's social media advertising webinar. So as brief introductions, my name is Troy Dowell and I oversee business development here at Minestream. I've been with the company for nearly 15 years and my role is really focused on client acquisition, seamless onboarding of those clients, and ensuring that Minestream delivers on our customer commitments. And I am joined today by two of our digital media experts and featured speakers. We've got Bailey Bassan, who's our paid media director, as well as Bijan Balaklu, as our paid social manager. So to kick things off, I'm just going to provide for 2 or 3 minutes a brief overview on Minestream, then I'll turn things over to Bailey and Bijan. So what we do here at Minestream, it's really simple. We connect national brands to consumers when and where it matters most. So we work with a lot of multi-location brands. We work with brands that are pushing their product through a retail distribution network or even focused on e-commerce. So it's really our job to provide the strategy and guidance to connect your brand at the local level with your consumers and do that in a very efficient and optimized manner. A little bit about Minestream. We've got roughly 160 employees throughout the U.S. You can see we've got 8 offices that really kind of go from coast to coast with some focus in the central states. We've actually been around for 50 plus years. We started way back in the day with some traditional media, print yellow pages, direct mail, and have continued to evolve in the digital space. Look at ourselves today as really a full service digital media buying research agency. And we represent through our client roster, which we'll take a look at here in a minute, roughly 150,000 locations throughout the U.S. Our core competencies, because we work with a lot of brands that have hundreds or even thousands of locations, we do spend a lot of time focused on location services where we're providing listings management. We're really focused on helping brands ensure that their locations information is accurate and visible across the web. Viewing appears high in organic positioning. And then beyond that, when we look at paid media, search marketing, display advertising, social media, core competencies that we focus on at either the corporate level, so working with a brand and pushing that information out through their affiliate networks, or conversely working at the local level, so working with an individual franchisee on their own, building their own local marketing plan, and then employing that on behalf of, and just making sure that's in alignment with the corporate strategy. Some of the clients that we represent, it really does run the gamut here. There's 30 clients that we're showing here. You see clients such as Verizon and Roto-Rooter, and it ranges all the way to other clients like Title Boxing and State Farm. But again, it really depends on the client strategy on how they want to engage with Minestream. Oftentimes we're working with corporate to develop a strategy and then either execute that on a national scale on behalf of all your locations, or we're appointed to make sure again that we have access to your franchise or affiliate network and build individual localized programs for their particular markets. And then lastly, we do try to take a holistic approach. We really look at digital. We know that the customer journey continues to evolve as technology changes, as customer buying trends, consumer buying trends continue to change. And it's really our goal to make sure that we're staying on top of these trends and making sure that we're providing you with a better understanding of attribution and campaign success. So ultimately, the marketing tactics, the strategies that we employ help your business grow and certainly deliver on key ROI and KPI performance metrics. So high-level overview on Minestream. At this point, I will turn it over to Bailey and Bijan to walk through the social content for today.
Thanks, Troy. So I'm Bailey Bassan. I'm the Director of Paid Media at Minestream Interactive, and I'm here with Bijan.
Yeah, I'm Bijan Balaklu. I'm the Manager of Paid Social, and I lead all the strategy and execution for our paid social campaigns.
So we're going to keep it pretty conversational today, and please feel free to send over questions at any point, and Troy's going to feed those to us so that we can answer those throughout the webinar, and then we'll have some time at the end. So overall, what we want to talk about is kind of overcoming the challenges in social advertising. What is delaying people from jumping into social advertising, where social advertising is today, kind of how the landscape's changing. We're gonna kind of walk through setting you up for success in social advertising. So selecting the right platform. There are tons of platforms out there. There are even more ad types. So how do you select that? And then ensuring that you're reaching your target market at the right moment. So, and then understanding the key metrics to measure performance. So not just being there, but making sure that you're successful, you're making an impact for your business, whatever it is that you're trying to, whatever your objective is for the campaign, making sure that that's done. And then looking at a few top brands and how they're successfully utilizing social ads and how we're helping them do that.
So one of the questions I had for you, Bailey, is what are some of the biggest hesitations that clients have had when approaching paid social?
So I think one of the biggest things that people are focused on with social media is they think it's still just where teenagers are going and puppy videos are being shared and baby videos are being shared, and that's definitely happening, but people are really utilizing social both personally and as well as for business objectives very differently today than they may have been when social first rolled out. I thought it was interesting in doing some research that 30% of Snapchat users utilize Snapchat for election-related information this year, which I think a lot of people just think of Snapchat as communicating with friends, messaging with friends between teenagers, and watching videos and keeping up with celebrity, but you really can't discredit it as a news source. I think one of the biggest things is, Facebook, it continues to be the 10,000-pound gorilla. I think, as of right now, it will always be that way. They expect to get almost 13 million more users between this year and 2021, and nearly half of them will be adults 65 plus. So it's really expanding beyond that millennial generation, and a lot more people are on the platform. Instagram, it's a place where people turn their passions really into purchase. People, over 71% of companies will utilize Instagram in 2017 for marketing. So beyond that, we see that 75% of Instagrammers take action after being inspired by a post. So it's not just people liking each other's photos, they're actually following companies and then taking action. Excuse me. Very similarly, on Twitter, what I found was crazy, and I don't know, Bijan, if you've realized this, that Twitter launched 10 years ago. It seems like it's still such a new platform, but really it's been around. And it's become a way for people to interact with brands, from contest to customer service. I mean, I think you hear about it all the time, people tweeting at companies. I know we do it all the time with Postmates. So there's, 66% of people have discovered a small or medium-sized business on Twitter, and 69% of them have purchased from that business based on something they saw on Twitter.
And one of the reasons for that is Twitter has a really strong relationship with small businesses, and in terms of how they connect those people to, for example, a Twitter advertising rep. So a lot of small businesses will have an easier time coping with Twitter ads maybe than Facebook ads, because on Facebook, it's sometimes difficult to get in contact with someone when you need help getting things set up or figuring out what is the best step for you.
And then just the last thing is showing how much marketers are turning to social. So it really is becoming a holistic part of marketers' strategies, and we really believe that here at Minestream. So over the next 12 months, close to 2/3 of marketers plan to increase their investment on Facebook, which again isn't surprising since they are the 10,000-pound gorilla, but really closely behind that is, LinkedIn and Instagram. Instagram's growing, leaps and bounds, and I think LinkedIn, one of the big things is they continue to roll out new ad formats. So it's really important, people are still engaging with this. They're using more platforms than ever before. They're using them to find products that they want. Businesses are using the platform. So it's really not just an engagement platform for teenagers anymore. So the biggest thing that eMarketer in a recent study heard was that 61% of marketers responded that their biggest challenge faced in entering social media was measuring the ROI. This outranked all other challenges. What this shows is, that all of these platforms that are, they looked at are actually producing an ROI. Facebook, again, we see that as a trend, is leading the charge, but it is an ROI-based platform. There are ROI-based platforms, and I think it's really just realizing how you can set them up to be the most successful.
And one of the things I wanted to point out on here too is we see like a 2% for Snapchat. So understanding like what we're measuring here is maybe in terms of revenue generation, but there's a lot of added value in things that can't be measured by a dollar amount, like brand value and affinity with those brands.
Absolutely. So in addition to the platforms and other marketers seeing ROI, we've definitely had firsthand experience in this. Over a 90-day campaign in Q4, we worked with Facebook directly to integrate sales data into our campaign for a Verizon agent, and we saw a 725% ROI. So this is huge. And I think if there's one thing that people should get out of this webinar is that we really want to be partners to help you set up for success. So determining, which are the best platforms and which are the best ad types and what capabilities they have to tie back to whatever it is, the ROI that you're looking for, as Bijan said, if it's brand affinity, things like that, making sure that we set that up together. So I think the last thing that people get overwhelmed with when they look at, going into the social world is they don't even know where to get started. There are so many platforms and even more ad types. I mean, Facebook, there's local, there's national, there's driving people on platform, off platform, carousel, video. There's just so much. Videos, on Twitter, there's contests, there's followers and engagement. Snapchat, I think a lot of people get overwhelmed because they've heard about minimums. What's the difference between a geo filter versus a sponsored lens? Pinterest, there's promoted pins for awareness, for engagement, for traffic. There's so much. So it's just figuring out how do we get started, where do we dip our toe in the water? And so I think to that, Bijan, how should a client go about selecting platforms to advertise?
Good question. So I think it's really broken down into three main components. One of them is, where does your brand have a strong presence already? So if you're thinking about, well, maybe I have most followers on Facebook or Twitter, or maybe I get a lot of interactions on my posts on Instagram, but not so much on Facebook. Those are all things to keep in mind in terms of where you're going to have the most brand worth and recognition. But another thing to keep in mind is, where do people expect your brand to be present on or to be active on? And that's really important too. So in this graph from HubSpot, we kind of see the breakdown between females and males in terms of where they think brands should have a presence on across social media. So obviously Facebook is the highest, but I think Twitter is really important, and it's kind of, I think, maybe taken a backseat in the last year or so, but that expectation might still be there because a lot of people still go to Twitter to interact directly with the brand. Like for example, with Postmates or Taco Bell, they're having direct consumer interactions on those platforms, whereas on Facebook you may have to send a message and wait 24 hours to get a response, whereas it might be immediate on Twitter. So those are all things to keep in mind in terms of where you're thinking you should have a strong brand presence on. The next component is, where does your audience live? Do they live on Facebook? Do they live on Snapchat? Where are they using those platforms the most? So this snapshot is just strictly for the multicultural audience, but it kind of paints a larger picture in terms of how much time people are spending on each platform and also how they index across different ethnicities. So 100 is the average here. So if the number is above 100, it's indexing higher on that platform in comparison to all the users on those platforms. So we see really strong performance with, for example, the Hispanic audience on Instagram, and we see a really strong performance with the Asian audience on Tumblr or Twitter, for example. And then the last step is figuring out which platforms align most closely to your objectives. So if you're trying to design a campaign that's going to generate online sales and a lift in offline activation, Facebook is really the best option for you. There are a lot of ad formats there, like dynamic product ads or web conversion ads or offer claims, which kind of are a mix of online and offline, but then there are those offline ad formats like store visits or local awareness that can get people in your store or calling their nearest location. On the Twitter side, Twitter is really focused on creating and shaping conversations in real time. So that's where people go to talk about the thing that's just happening right now, talk to other people that are talking about it, see what other people are talking about. So one of the ad formats is conversational ads. Another one is a promoted trend, seeing what hashtags are trending, maybe a new emoji that's focused on a brand, or amplifying, what people have said about your brand, or even having an ad format that'll show up right when they open the app. So those are all things that we could leverage to create and shape those conversations. With Instagram, it's really about increasing engagement, but also pushing those mobile-first actions. So if you have, for example, an app, Instagram is a perfect platform for you because everybody that's seeing your ads is already on their phone and they can install that app right away. But also, video view campaigns and engagement-based campaigns are really great because Instagram is a great visual canvas or medium to get those creatives across. On Snapchat's a really great driver of awareness and brand interaction. So I think people interact with the brand on Snapchat very uniquely to how they interact with brands on other platforms. So as you mentioned before, things like sponsored geofilters, lenses, and Snap ads really let you get your brand at the forefront and get people talking about your brand on a national scale. So, we had a good background on what the challenges were and maybe what the first steps are in figuring out what platforms to use, but there's also, kind of walking before we run. So Bailey, my question to you is, how do we go about structuring a test campaign?
Yeah, so I think that to set up a really successful test, the best thing to do is to make sure that it's defined. And the first thing to do is define a test and control market. And we can look at it from a state side. You can look at it as certain, zip codes, DMAs, cities, but making sure that you determine test and control markets that are very similar as possible, so that you are eliminating as many variables as possible. So looking at similar market size, geographical locations. You don't want to test something in San Diego and something in Boston, where Boston could get a snowstorm and totally skew all of the results. Look at historical sales, making sure that these markets perform similarly for you historically, so that you're not looking at one of your highest performers and one of your lowest performers. Distribution channels, so if you're somewhere that sells in other locations, make sure that those channels are a similar number in these markets. And then additional local market efforts, making sure that you aren't supporting something else. You aren't supporting one market in a totally different way than the other that could skew results. And then, as well as, I skipped over competitors, but you don't want to go and make a test market, your biggest competitor's home market, where they may be doing more and may have more feet on the ground. So to define your KPIs would be the next step. And we kind of broke this down to keep the 3 M's in mind. But this is really determining what you're going to measure. You want to make sure it's meaningful. What are the most important metrics for your business specifically? And don't get overexcited. Make sure it's meaningful, and make sure that you can tell the story at the end. If you test too much at once, you're not going to know whether it was, the ad format you chose or the platform you chose. Make sure that it's able to come out with a meaningful result in the end. Measurable. Bijan, I think you're going to talk about how we can put things in place to ensure that we're measuring correctly, but make sure there's something there to grasp. Feeling good about the campaign is important, but being able to support that feelings with numbers is really critical to any campaign. And I think we're going to touch upon that a little bit more later. And then make it manageable. Have the ability to adjust according to the campaign. Don't ever get too married to the plan. Be flexible and know that the plans can change, and capitalize on campaign success, even if that might mean that not everyone, every ad type, every creative, every market is getting the equal budget or exposure. Make sure that you're looking at it as a success and be manageable to those results. So then really this is right along with setting up your KPIs, but set your benchmarks for success. This is really like setting the rules for winning. Make sure that the benchmarks are customized, and determine what metrics your business must hit to be successful in your market. Strategically align the benchmarks with specific campaigns, objectives, and structures. So, if you're looking at a business-to-business objective, make sure that you're aligning your KPIs and your benchmarks with those objectives. It could be, becoming an expert in your field by putting out so much content on a month. And what's that success and what does that benchmark look like? Utilize historical data to guide the thresholds for success. Don't all of a sudden take a number and just draw a line in the sand and choose that number, but look at where you've seen successes. And keep in mind that average purchase value will significantly impact the realistic benchmarks. Set a general baseline and understand it, but again, similar to making sure that the campaigns are going to change, your KPIs and your benchmarks could fluctuate over time. If you want to stay relevant, you have to continually research and reset the benchmarks based on each test that you're running and each campaign you're running, each platform you're running, each goal you're trying to reach. So that's kind of, I think, how we have to structure the test.
I really like this quote. If you don't have a line in the sand, you really don't know what to measure against. That's super important.
So I think now that we have it set up, we've chosen our platform, we've structured our test, how do we know that we're reaching the right people at the right time?
Definitely. So I think the first step is kind of gathering those insights on your audience. So you generally have a good, I think, baseline of, who is my ideal consumer, but what do they care about? Are they male or female? Where are they most popular in terms of geographics? So Facebook has a really good tool here called Audience Insights that you can go in and get some of that information. A lot of that information can be applied not just on Facebook, but also on your other platforms or marketing channels that you're using as well. So we can go in on the left side and maybe add in some things that we think defines our audience, like age or locations, interests, behaviors. Maybe we want to use our followers or people that have converted with us in the past as our audience source. And on the right side, we can shuffle through things like demographics, what pages they like, where they're located, maybe some activities that they participate in. What does their household look like in terms of income? Are they married or single? Do they have kids? And then purchases, like what are they purchasing? Or what are they in market to purchase? So these are all really valuable pieces of information that you can use to make sure you're reaching the right audience. The next step, once you kind of know who your audience is how you target them. So one of the things we do here at Minestream that's kind of differentiating from maybe some of the competing vendors that do social ads is we target by targeting tactic rather than various interests. So this is definitely something we would recommend for anybody that's going into the social ad space. It's one of Facebook's best practices is to group all of your interests and behaviors into one category. So all your first, second, and third party data, that should all go into one category and allow Facebook to optimize towards those interests or behaviors that are going to work the best for your campaign. Maybe another group can be people that follow your brand or people that are friends with the people that follow your brand. And then maybe another group can be lookalikes, so people that look like either people that follow your page or have converted with you or within your CRM list. So people that are within your target audience and finding people that are similar to them. And then retargeting, making sure we're reaching people that have engaged with us or interacted with an ad or converted with us or visited our website. These are all kind of distinct segments that we can utilize, and then we can also exclude from each other. So we're making sure that there's really zero overlap within them. These are 5 distinct audience segments that we're not competing with ourselves on in the ad auction marketplace. This allows us to really confidently A/B test creatives, determine whether what we're doing is working or it's not working.
I think this goes back to the making it meaningful as well. You can also get those audience, insights as to which audiences really are truly the most impactful for your business on social.
Definitely. The one thing I forgot to mention is the reason why we don't target multiple interest categories is, you're one person, you're interested in a lot of things. There's really no way to tell whether somebody is interested in this segment of interest but not in the other segment of interest. So understanding one person can be interested in multiple things prevents you from having any overlap or cross efforts with your marketing plan. And then once we implement the campaign into the market, it's really about analyzing those results and breaking those results down from various perspectives. So that some of the things we can focus on are demographics like age and gender, but also things like country, region, your business locations. Something that Facebook just rolled out is DMAs as well. So making sure that you're getting that geo data that you need. And then some ad formats have their own unique breakdowns. Like if you're running a canvas ad, you can see the percent of the people that went through your canvas, the different stages of the canvas, or from carousel, whether they clicked from the first card or the second card, and vice versa. Also device insights as well, whether they're on iOS or Android. These are all really valuable pieces of information that you can use after your campaign's in market to maybe optimize and refine your strategies for the next campaign. So now that our ads are in market, how do we really know that they're working? The first step is focusing on the metrics that matter. So this is what Bailey brushed on earlier. We think, traditional media up until recently has really been measured by those reach and awareness metrics. But that's not really what a brand cares about, right? They want to know what is driving those business objectives, that whether it's revenue or it's some sort of behavior change. What is the result you're trying to achieve, and how do we measure that and really focus on that, because that's ultimately what you care about. So we took a snapshot of Facebook and Twitter and outlined some metrics from a sample campaign. So things like your CPM, your cost per click, your click-through rate, those are all great metrics, but ultimately a click is just the first step, or an ad impression is just the first step into the actions that you want. So the metrics we care about are more at the bottom, like your return on investment, or the revenue per visitor, or the first click revenue per visitor. So these are the metrics that actually are driving the business results, and if we were to display a report, this is what we'd want to see at the forefront. The other stuff are kind of secondary metrics that I think are good to look at, but they really don't make an impact on whether we're defining success or failure with the campaign. The next step is conversion tracking. So really making sure that from a baseline we have at least that online conversion tracking. So Facebook has a pixel, Twitter's got a pixel, making sure we're installing those tags on our websites so we can not only track people that visit our websites, but also track people that perform certain actions on our websites, like whether they purchase or they add things to their cart, or if they download a coupon or they sign up for a newsletter. These are all things that we want to track, and we want to create audiences from the people that do those things. So maybe if we're running a newsletter campaign, we don't want to be serving ads to people that have already signed up for a newsletter, right? But on the other side, maybe people have converted and we've measured that. We want to use that pool of audience to find more people that are similar to those users.
So we got our first question, and I think you've touched upon it. And they asked if Facebook advertising is really a lead generation tactic. Can you measure true customer conversions? And I think this is exactly what we're talking about. If you set up the conversion tracking, then yes, you are measuring those true conversions, whatever those conversions are.
Yeah, it's a great question. If your conversions are online, we can definitely track any type of conversion that you want to track. But that's also a good segue to offline, right? Because a lot of the conversions that we want people to take happen offline. They see an ad and we want them to go into the store and do something. So that's really where the offline conversions and sales data come into play. So if we run an ad on Facebook, for example, we can also set it up where the advertiser or the client can send back sales data to Facebook, and Facebook will analyze that sales data and match it up with users that have seen the ad or clicked on an ad, and then let you know how much revenue was generated as a result of that ad that was served. So that's really important. That's probably where we see the most value for people that have brick and mortar locations, is being able to say this ad actually drove this much in sales, and that's what our clients ultimately want to see. And the next step to make sure that your ads are really working the best that they can do is setting up your bid settings to be structured with the objectives that you're running. So you really, if you can make it this way where you're only paying for the action that you want someone to take, that's more important than paying when they see the ad. So this way, if you're paying per action, it doesn't matter how many people see the ad, you're not actually going to pay until they take the action you want to take. So that really reduces the risk involved with running something like a social ad campaign. You can kind of figure out, well, how much am I willing to pay for this action, and then how do I make sure I'm never paying more than that value. So on the top, we have an example of, for example, if we have a campaign that clicks to your website, you can pay every time someone clicks. But on the bottom, for example, if we had an app install campaign and we want to pay when someone actually installs the app, we can set that bid and only pay when they install the app. So that's super valuable for an advertiser to have that flexibility.
I think what's nice about this is before when we talked about like setting your KPIs and setting your benchmarks, it's literally, to me, one of the few medias that you can use that you're actually applying that benchmark or that KPI directly to your campaign. So you're saying, like, here's my line in the sand and I'm not willing to pay more for it, and I don't want to pay for anything under this action.
Yeah, and it's also important, don't start with the max amount you're willing to pay, because it's an auction, right? If you set the value for the action at the max of what you're willing to pay, all of a sudden another advertiser can come and outbid you, and now you've undercut yourself, right? So kind of build up to it, start small, see if it works, increase it as you need to scale the campaign. And then, once you reach your limit, but don't start with the limit, because then you have nowhere to go.
And so what would you say, how often or how long does it usually take to figure out that limit, to figure out what the competition's doing? Because it's, like you said, a live auction. So
yeah, so Facebook actually provides you some examples, like in this screenshot. They tell you maybe what the market value for that action is based on similar advertisers, so you can use that as a guideline. Also, other publications like eMarketer provide some insights. So using all those insights can tell you maybe how much you have to pay to play, and then hopefully that falls within your range. You can move up from there. So Bailey, we just launched a really successful campaign. I'd love to see maybe some case studies with some of the clients you work with on how they've seen similar success.
Absolutely. So we brought two different examples today, and they're a little bit different. Facebook, one of the things that's really nice about it is how well it plays with other media that we're running in the market. So for Stanley Steamer in December, what we did was we took some of our best performing audience segments from display and Facebook campaigns that we had done in order to go out and try to acquire new followers for the Stanley page so that we can continually re-engage with these people. And the nice thing about this is that these new audiences can also be put into retargeting and lookalike both on social as well as display. So it's kind of like a big circle. We're always seeing, like, we're pulling audience information from display, bringing it into social, acquiring new audiences in social, and then we see successes there and pushing them back into display. So like we said at the beginning, it's very much holistic. So how we ran this campaign is we put together 10 unique page-like ad variations, and you can see, that we had pet owners in there. It's not just cute puppies. And people who are, general moving, home improvement, some brand ads, and tested them all out. And so these were three of the most successful we saw in acquiring new followers of the page.
One thing I wanted to point out on here, if you notice on the two examples on the right, they have the same ad copy, but their image is different. So making sure you're testing out the same copy with different images, and then maybe the same image with different copies is really important to determine whether it's your ad copy that's not working or it's your image that's not working. Because if you have all unique images in ad copy, you don't really know which one is the driver of the poor performance.
Absolutely. So in the success that we saw, the average number of daily new page followers tripled. between November and December, as you can see on the graph on the right-hand side. The post per like averaged less than 45 cents. So what's really nice about this is it's really acquiring, as I said, that new audience that we're able to consistently push out Stanley messaging and content to. And then again, we can apply this also to our display campaign. So that 45 cents, less than 45 cent average is really, really impactful because of how valuable this audience is that's opting in to engage with us. It also drove, over 68,000 visits to the website, and over 84% of these were new. So again, getting new people in the top of the funnel efficiently and effectively, and being able to re-engage with them throughout time. So then, very different, another Q4 example that we had was working with a Verizon agent, and what we did was this is really all about the ad type selection, and Bijan, feel free to jump in at any point, but what we did was we introduced this new offer claims ad format to simplify the user experience in downloading and saving the coupons. And so what we wanted to test out is we were driving people to a landing page that had 5 different conversions: a download a coupon, a zip code search, a store locator, a find a location, and a get directions. But we thought, let's see what happens when we keep people on platform. Are we seeing more interaction with the ads? Are we seeing more people take action? We used the targeting, as Bijan outlined, with the 5 distinct subsets with 0 overlap, and also implemented a barcode format from the Facebook platform so that we could tie this back to in-store sales. So the results that we saw, over 50,000 offers were claimed on Facebook, on platform, compared to only 3,000 coupon downloads on the website, making it about 1,000% more efficient at driving saved coupons comparable to the website conversion ads. When we tied it back to sales, we saw a 2 times higher return on every dollar spent than on the web conversions. So, it was really the ability to pay per click rather than impressions that was successful. And then the other thing in the screenshots that we showed on this page before is that we had the repeated reminders on platform and through email. And this really is a seamless user experience. And we also didn't pay for each of these follow-up reminders. So it's kind of like an added value bonus. We only paid when someone claimed the offer. So I think from the end of it, what our so whats, or what we would want someone to take away from today's webinar is, join the crowd, take the plunge into paid social, identify the platform that makes the most sense for you, your business, and your customers, as well as your objectives, and set up a test. Draw the line in the sand, determine what it's going to be to win, and pay only when the user completes that action that you want. Focus on the real metrics that make a difference for your brand. And I think, if you kind of take anything away from this, it's that social is definitely somewhere to play, and it's relatively easy. I mean, there's lots of platforms out there which can be overwhelming, but also gives a marketer or a brand a lot of options to figure out how it's best for them to play.
Yeah, it's really the medium that's, I think, having the most growth year over year. I think in the last year it grew 150%, and then by 2019, I think the market size for social advertising may reach about 40 billion, as eMarketer is estimating. So people are understanding the value, they're recognizing it, they're moving more into that direction. So if you're a brand or a company, you really want to make sure that you're staying ahead of the curve, and you're partnering with a vendor like Minestream that really kind of understands where that medium is going and how to help tailor that, to your needs. All
so
right.
We had one other question come through about franchise development, and if there are any good benchmarks that exist for franchise development. And we've seen a lot of success with franchise development on Facebook and generating leads. We've actually seen it generate leads at a lower CPA than some of our search campaigns even. I don't know that we have a general benchmark. I mean, similar to what we said before, it really depends on what the startup costs are, what the investment is, everything like that. But definitely something that we're working towards figuring out, but it's customized, to every single opportunity. I think the other thing for, any B2B kind of opportunity or goal or objective is to really make sure that your content's there so that people are coming to you as an expert in the field.
Yeah, for Fran Dev, it's really important. I think capturing that lead is the biggest thing. And if you can do that on platform with a limited amount of steps, it's ultimately going to drive the best results for you. So what we generally do with Fran Dev is making sure we're, one, targeting people that have the financial freedom to invest in a franchise. So it doesn't make sense to target people that don't have the means to engage with you in that respect. And then also keeping them on platform with something, for example, like a lead generation ad on Facebook or Instagram that gives you the entire form fill on platform, and it's even auto-filled with all the information they've shared with Facebook already, like their name and their email. And then any questions you want to ask, you can throw that in there. And then we can, sync that up directly with your CRM list so that those leads come in and they go directly to where you want them to go, and then you can follow up from there. And we generally see a ton more success using that method rather than taking them to the website to fill out a form over there.
All right.
So, perfect.
Bailey and Bijan, thank you. I've got a couple more questions that have come in. If anybody else, if you're still on the line and want to submit your questions, please do so now, as we'll continue here for another 5 or 10 minutes, or as many questions that we have come in. But one we had, based on your experience, what you've seen across search and display and now paid social, how do results that you've seen for some of the case studies that you shared, how do results compare to what you saw relative to search and display during the same time period?
Yeah, I think specifically speaking about, I think the Verizon case study that we had, social was really a great driver because of those unique things like on-platform conversion. So we saw that social was a really great driver of those coupon downloads. I think over 90% of all the coupon downloads we had in Q4 came from paid social, but then display was, good at allowing people to find their nearest store or walk into those stores because we measured them with things like verified walk-ins, so measuring how many people actually walked into your store. And then search was, I think, the biggest driver of having people get directions to their stores. So I think the goals on each platform are a little bit different, making sure you tailor your marketing plan towards those goals and kind of using the platforms for what they were built for. Facebook, in this case, was really great at getting people to download a coupon.
Yeah, I completely agree with Bijan. And I think the other thing is remembering how they all do work holistically. So utilizing the research or the audiences that we found in display, and we were able to apply those to our Facebook campaigns, which increased our offer claims. And then additionally, as we were getting new people into the funnel, as they were going down the funnel a little bit further, we had them there for search as they were searching for their nearest locations to get the offer that they had claimed on Facebook. So we're there capturing that as well. So I think it's really looking at it as a full funnel and making sure that we fit the pieces together correctly and that we're choosing media that, is meeting the objectives, whatever they are.
Okay, thanks. One more. Assuming that the objective is lead gen, what media, what channel would you recommend? Is it Facebook or is it complemented by others?
I think if it's lead gen from a prospecting perspective, Facebook and Instagram are definitely the leaders there with that form fill that we were talking about that was on platform. But if they are already in your funnel, maybe they're searching for it already, search is that great driver of intent. So if we can marry both of those channels together, one from a prospecting phase and second from a retention perspective, I think we could probably find a lot of success with that.
All right, thank you. I don't see any more questions that have come in, so again, Bailey and Bijan, appreciate you taking time out to conduct this webinar. And just as a reminder for everybody in attendance, we will be sending out a recorded version to you over the next few business days. If you have any interest in learning more about paid social and other capabilities of Minestream, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, thank you for your time and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.